He's just like his mother. Good for nothing but cleaning up after real people. That was my ex-mother-in-law's voice. And the laughter that followed? That came from her daughter and her daughter's two girls, sitting around the kitchen table eating pepperoni pizza while my 7-year-old son knelt on the tile floor with a rag, scrubbing dried sauce off the baseboards. My name is Sophia. I'm a nurse, a single mom. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me, because what I walked into that afternoon changed everything I thought I knew about the people I once called family. Let me back up. 2 weeks earlier, I had to fly to Denver for a critical care training program. 14 days. My hospital covered everything. The flights, the hotel, the coursework, but they couldn't cover the one thing I needed most. Someone I trusted to watch my son, Leo. His father, my ex-husband Ryan, had disappeared 3 years ago. Not dramatically, not with a fight. He just stopped answering the phone one Tuesday and never came back. No custody battle. No forwarding address. Just silence and a closet half empty. So, when Ryan's mother, the woman Leo still called Grandma, offered to take him for those 2 weeks, I hesitated. We hadn't been close since the divorce. But Leo loved her. He talked about her chocolate chip pancakes and how she let him watch cartoons past bedtime. And honestly, I didn't have another option. My own parents lived in Oregon. My best friend had just had twins. And Leo was so excited. Mom. Grandma said she'd take me to the park every day. So I said yes. I packed his bag with extra socks, his favorite stuffed dinosaur, a handwritten note that said, "I love you to the moon, be back before you know it," and I drove him to her house on a Sunday morning. She smiled at the door, hugged him tight, told me not to worry. I should have worried. The training was supposed to end on a Friday. But the last module got canceled due to a scheduling conflict, so I caught an earlier flight on Thursday. Didn't call ahead. Didn't text. I just wanted to surprise Leo. Pick him up, grab ice cream on the way home, hear about his 2 weeks. That's all I was thinking about as I pulled into the driveway. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside and heard voices from the kitchen. My ex-mother-in-law, her daughter, Ryan's younger sister Megan, and Megan's 2 girls, twins, about 9 years old. They were laughing. Loud, comfortable laughter. The kind that fills a room when everyone belongs. But Leo didn't belong. Not in that room. Not the way they'd arranged it. He was on his knees beside the refrigerator, wiping the floor with a damp rag that was bigger than both his hands. His clothes were dirty. Not kid dirty, not mud from the park dirty. Worn dirty. Like he'd been in the same outfit for days. His hair was uncombed. And on the table, 4 plates of pizza, 4 glasses of lemonade, 4 chairs pulled in. None for him. Megan's girls didn't even glance at him. They were used to it, like the furniture, like the rag in his hands. Then my ex-mother-in-law said it again. Not to Leo, but about him, to Megan, right there in front of him. I told Ryan that boy would turn out just like her. Can't even mop properly. At least your girls know how to carry themselves. Megan laughed. Mom, stop. You're gonna make me choke. Leo didn't look up, he just scrubbed faster. Have you ever felt your entire body go cold and hot at the same time? Like your blood forgot which direction to flow? That's what happened to me. I stood in the hallway for maybe 5 seconds, but it felt like 5 years. Every alarm in my body was screaming, but my legs wouldn't move because my brain was still trying to process what my eyes were seeing. My son. My gentle, kind, 7-year-old son who still checked under his bed for monsters and said "excuse me" to the dog when he stepped over her. On his knees, scrubbing a floor, while grown women laughed about him 3 feet away. I walked into that kitchen, and I didn't yell, I didn't scream. I said one word. Leo. He looked up, and the expression on his face almost broke me in half. It wasn't relief. It wasn't even surprise. It was fear, like he'd been caught doing something wrong. Like my presence meant he was about to get in more trouble. My ex-mother-in-law turned. Oh, Sophia, you're early. We weren't expecting. Get up, baby, I said to Leo. Calm. Steady. Even though everything inside me was collapsing. We're leaving right now. He hasn't finished the she started. He's 7. I picked up the rag from his hands and dropped it on the counter. He's not your janitor. We were just teaching him responsibility, Megan said, not even putting down her pizza. Kids need to learn. I looked at her daughters. Clean clothes. Hair braided. Lemonade. Then I looked at Leo. Dirty shirt. No food. No seat at the table. Teaching him what, exactly? That he doesn't deserve to eat with everyone else? Nobody answered. Because there was no good answer. I took Leo's hand. I grabbed his bag from the hallway. His stuffed dinosaur was on the floor near the couch. Not on a bed. On the floor, like that's where he'd been sleeping. I picked it up, held my son's hand, walked out the front door, and I didn't look back. Not once. In the car, Leo was quiet for the first 10 minutes. Then, without me asking, he started talking. Small, careful sentences. Like he was testing whether it was safe to speak. Grandma said I couldn't eat until the kitchen was clean. How often did you eat with them, Leo? Sometimes. If there was extra. Mostly I ate after. After what? After they were done. In the kitchen. By myself. I gripped the steering wheel, so hard my knuckles turned white. Where did you sleep, sweetheart? On the floor in the TV room. Grandma said the guest bed was for Megan's girls when they came over. They were there the whole time? Megan came on the second day. She didn't leave. So for 12 days, my son had slept on a floor, eaten leftovers alone, and cleaned a house full of people who treated him like he was nothing. While I was 2,000 miles away, trusting the woman who promised me he'd be safe. I pulled over. I held him, and I cried. He didn't cry. That's what scared me the most. A 7-year-old who'd already learned that tears don't change anything. That's not strength. That's damage. We went home. I bathed him, fed him his favorite meal, chicken tenders and mac and cheese, and let him fall asleep in my bed with every light on because he said Grandma's house was dark at night and he didn't like it. Then I sat at my kitchen table and I planned. Here's what they forgot about me. I'm not just a nurse. I'm a woman who spent 3 years rebuilding her life after a man walked out on her and a baby. I'm organized. I'm patient. And I keep records. When Ryan and I were married, we put a down payment on his mother's house. $82,000. My money, my savings. From before the marriage, during the marriage, all of it. The house was in Ryan's name because his mother convinced us it would be easier for taxes. I was 25 and didn't know better, but I kept every receipt, every transfer confirmation, every email where his mother acknowledged the money. After the divorce, I never pushed for it. I didn't want the fight. I figured Leo loved his grandmother, and she'd always been decent to him, or so I thought. So I let it go. $82,000 I decided wasn't worth the war. It was worth the war now. Monday morning, I called my attorney. Not a family lawyer, a litigation attorney. I told her everything. She listened, pulled up the records I emailed, and said 5 words that changed the trajectory. You have a very strong case. I also called Child Protective Services. Not to be vindictive, because what happened to Leo in that house was neglect. A child sleeping on the floor, being denied meals at the table, being used as domestic labor while adults watched and laughed. That's not discipline. That's cruelty. And it needed to be documented. CPS opened an investigation within 48 hours. My attorney filed a civil claim for the $82,000 plus interest. And I filed a petition for a protective order restricting unsupervised contact between Leo and his grandmother. 3 things. Launched in 1 week. Quietly. Methodically. Like setting up an IV drip. Slow, steady, and precise. The first call came on Wednesday. My ex-mother-in-law, voice shaking. Sophia. There are people here asking questions about Leo. Social workers. What did you do? I told the truth. He was fine here. We took care of him. You're blowing this out of proportion. He slept on a floor for 12 days. He ate alone. He cleaned your house while your other grandchildren were served pizza and lemonade. Silence. Those are just, he was helping out. Kids help out. Kids sit at the table. Kids sleep in beds. What you did has a name, and it's not helping out. She hung up. And I felt nothing. No guilt, no second guessing. Just clarity. 2 days later, Megan called. Not from concern, from fury. You reported my mother to CPS? Are you insane? Do you know what this does to her reputation? Do you know what it does to a child to be treated like a servant in his own grandmother's house? Oh, please. He was mopping a floor, not working in a coal mine. Your daughters had pizza, lemonade, and a bed. He had a rag, a floor, and leftovers. If you can't see the difference, that's exactly the problem. You're going to regret this, Sophia. No. I spent 3 years regretting staying quiet. That's over. She hung up. I blocked her number. Then the legal letter arrived at my ex-mother-in-law's house. The claim for $82,000. Her name was on the mortgage. The money I'd paid was documented. My attorney had every receipt, every bank statement, every email, including one from 2018 where my ex-mother-in-law wrote, "Thank you for the help with the down payment, Sophia. This house wouldn't be ours without you." Her own words. In her own email. Time-stamped and saved. She called again. This time, no anger, just panic. "Sophia, please. I can't afford a lawyer. You know that. Ryan hasn't sent me anything in years. If I have to pay that money back, I'll have to sell the house. You should have thought about that before you put my son on his knees. It wasn't that serious. It was serious to him." And then I said something I'd been holding for a long time. "You spent 3 years pretending I didn't exist. You didn't call on his birthdays. You didn't ask how he was doing in school. You only wanted him when it was convenient, and when you had him, you treated him like he was less than. Not less than your other grandkids. Less than human." She cried. I let her, because I'd cried enough for both of us over the years, and my tears never moved her. The CPS investigation took 3 weeks. They interviewed Leo, gently, with a child psychologist present. He told them everything. The floor, the food, the names. He said Grandma called him the charity case when she talked to Megan. He said Megan's daughters called him floor boy and laughed when he dropped the mop. He said he tried to be good, so maybe they'd let him sit at the table, but they never did. The report was filed. Substantiated neglect. My ex-mother-in-law was placed on a registry. Not criminal charges. Not this time, but a permanent record that would follow her. And then came the ghost. Ryan. After 3 years of silence. 3 years of no child support, no birthday calls, no custody requests. He materialized like he'd never left. "Sophia, what the hell are you doing to my mother?" Parenting. Something you might not recognize. You're suing her? She's 71 years old. She neglected your son. Our son. The one you left behind without a forwarding address. I had my reasons for leaving. And I have my reasons for this. He tried a different angle. Softer. Manipulative. The voice I used to fall for. "Look, I know I messed up. But Mom loves Leo. She made a mistake. Drop the lawsuit. Call off the CPS thing. And I'll start being more present. I'll pay support. You want to buy my silence with promises you've already broken." Sophia. No. You don't get to reappear after 3 years because your mother's house is at stake. That's not fatherhood. That's real estate. He called me bitter. Vindictive. Said I was punishing his mother because he left me. Then, he sent a text that I screenshot and forwarded directly to my attorney. Leo would honestly be better off with my mom full-time. You're too emotional to raise a boy into a man. My attorney smiled when she read it. This will be very useful in court. The civil case moved faster than I expected. My ex-mother-in-law couldn't afford representation. She tried to negotiate, offered $20,000, then $30,000. My attorney declined. The evidence was airtight. Every dollar traced, every email preserved. The court ruled in my favor. Full amount, $82,000, plus 4 years of accrued interest. She had 90 days to pay or the house would be sold. She couldn't pay. The house went on the market in September. Sold within 3 weeks to a young couple with 2 kids. I didn't attend the closing. I didn't need to, because this was never about the house. It was about a 7-year-old boy on his knees being told he was worthless by people who were supposed to love him. The fallout was immediate. Ryan's aunt called. Family doesn't sue family. I said. Family doesn't starve a child and make him sleep on a floor. Ryan's cousin posted on Facebook a long paragraph about how I was destroying a sweet old woman over a misunderstanding. She tagged me. 37 comments. Most of them from people who had no idea what happened in that kitchen. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't need to. The CPS report existed. The court ruling existed. The truth didn't need a Facebook post. But one message came privately. From Ryan's younger cousin, Jenna. She was 23, quiet, the one who always sat in the corner at family gatherings. I believe you, she wrote. She did similar things to me when I was little. Nobody talked about it. I'm sorry I never said anything. I thanked her. And I told her it wasn't her fault. Because that's how these families work. The quiet ones carry the weight, and the loud ones rewrite the story. My ex-mother-in-law moved in with Megan, into Megan's 2-bedroom apartment, with Megan's twin girls, the golden daughter and the golden grandchildren, all crammed into 700 square feet. No more big house. No more holiday dinners at the long table. No more throne. Ryan disappeared again. Of course, he did. The house was gone. The leverage was gone. And with it, any pretense of caring about his son. He didn't file for custody. He didn't pay support. He just faded back into whatever shadow he'd been living in. I never told Leo the details. He was 7. He didn't need to know about lawsuits and CPS reports. What he needed was safety, and that's what I built. We started therapy. Not just for him. For both of us. Every Thursday after school. His therapist used art. She had him draw pictures of how he felt. The first few weeks, his drawings were small. Tiny stick figures in big, empty rooms. A boy standing alone next to a table with no chair. A house with no windows. But week by week, they changed. The figures got bigger. The rooms got smaller. Colors appeared. A yellow sun. A green yard. A table with 2 chairs, then 3, then 4, filled with friends and food and a dog he wished we had. One evening, about 2 months after everything settled, I was cooking dinner. Leo walked into the kitchen, climbed onto his step stool and said, "Mom, can I help wash the vegetables?" I froze. Not because of what he said, but because of how he said it, casual, happy, without a trace of fear. Of course, baby. He washed the tomatoes and hummed a song from school. And I stood there, cutting onions, crying for reasons that had nothing to do with onions. We planted a small garden that fall. Tomatoes, basil, sunflowers. Leo watered them every morning before school. He named each sunflower. The tallest one was Captain. The smallest was Buddy. He talked to them like they were friends, and maybe they were, because for the first time in a long time, he was nurturing something instead of being told he wasn't enough. His birthday came in November. I invited his class, our neighbors, my friend Danielle, and her twins. We had a dinosaur cake because that's what he wanted. 18 kids running around the backyard, screaming, laughing, being kids. No one yelled. No one cleaned. No one was left out. When I tucked him in that night, he looked at me with those big brown eyes and said, "Mom, can I have seconds tomorrow?" Of the cake. My throat tightened. Because he was still asking permission. Still expecting the answer to be no. "You can have as many seconds as you want. Forever." He smiled. Fell asleep holding his dinosaur. And I sat on the edge of his bed, thinking about how the smallest request from a child can reveal the deepest wound. Months passed. The texts kept coming. Fewer now, but still sharp. Ryan's aunt. She's depressed. She barely eats. Are you happy now? Megan. From a new number. You ruined our family over nothing. My ex-mother-in-law. One final message. Just 3 sentences. I raised Ryan alone after his father died. I gave everything to that family. And this is how you repay me. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have words, but because I'd already said everything that mattered in a courtroom, in a CPS office, and in the quiet moments where I chose my son over their comfort. Here's what they'll never understand. I didn't sue for revenge. I sued for accountability. I didn't call CPS out of anger. I called because a child who sleeps on a floor and eats alone and scrubs baseboards while adults mock him deserves someone to say, "This is wrong." Not in a Facebook comment, not in a whisper, in a file, on a record, with consequences. And as for my $82,000, I put every cent into a trust for Leo. For college, for his future, for a life where he'll never be on his knees cleaning someone else's floor unless he chooses to. We still drive past that old neighborhood sometimes. The new family painted the front door blue. There's a swing set in the yard now. Kids' bikes on the porch. Last week, Leo looked out the window as we passed and said, "Mom, do you think the new kids who live there are happy?" "I hope so, sweetheart. I hope they eat at the table," he said. I reached over and squeezed his hand. We don't talk about what happened in that house. Not because it's a secret, but because it's behind us. He's healing. I'm healing. And some doors don't need to stay open for closure. They just need to stay shut. I started volunteering at a local shelter on weekends, teaching basic first aid to kids in transitional housing. Leo comes with me sometimes. He helps hand out band-aids and tells the younger kids that dinosaurs were actually really gentle, most of them. The mean ones get all the attention, he says. But the nice ones were bigger. I think about that a lot. Because, in the end, this isn't a story about revenge. Not really. It's about a boy who was told he was worthless by people who were supposed to treasure him. And a mother who decided that silence was no longer an option. That politeness was no longer a priority. That family is not a word you hide behind when you've hurt the smallest person in the room. Some people will say I went too far. That I should have talked it out. That I shouldn't have involved courts and social workers. That family problems should stay in the family. But that's exactly how it stays hidden. That's exactly how it continues. Behind closed doors, at tables where one child gets lemonade and another gets a rag. In houses where the quiet ones scrub and the loud ones eat. Not anymore. Not in my house. Not for my son. If you're watching this and something in your chest feels tight, if you recognize a piece of this story from your own life, from your own childhood, from your own family, I want you to know something. You deserved a seat at that table. You deserved seconds. You deserved a bed, not a floor. And if no one ever told you that, I'm telling you now. Because the best thing I ever did wasn't suing for $82,000. It wasn't calling CPS. It wasn't winning in court. The best thing I ever did was kneeling down in a kitchen, taking a rag out of my son's hands and saying, "You're done. We're going home." And now, every night, he sleeps in his own bed, in his own room, with a nightlight shaped like a dinosaur and a door that's always open. He doesn't flinch when I raise my voice to call him for dinner. He doesn't ask if there's enough food. He just shows up, sits down, and eats. That's not revenge. That's repair. And this little house we built, with the sunflower garden and the tomato plants and the step stool he uses to wash vegetables while humming songs from school, this is what a home is supposed to feel like. Not a place where children earn their worth, but a place where they never have to.